I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy.
Here.
Mr. Leary.
Here.
Miss Martin.
Here.
Mr. McHugh.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Miss Doherty.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is a public hearing on interdistrict choice, the school choice program. We'll open up the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this program? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition. That portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of committee? Ms. Martin.
I'd make a motion that we continue not to participate in the interdistrict choice program.
Okay, motion's been made, seconded by Mr. McHugh. Roll call, please.
Ms. Spadacante. Mr. Leahy.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Leary.
Just point of clarification, the motion is to not participate. Okay.
Yes.
Miss Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, not to participate, approved.
Okay, the next item is our bi-weekly, I guess, spotlight on excellence. And this matter is concerns the Greater Lowell Bar Association Law School or Law Day essay contest. I had the privilege to be one of the judges of the essay contest, along with Judge Pearson from the Lowell District Court and Michael Talty, who is the president of the Greater Lowell Bar Association. I can tell you we had a very difficult choice, and we did try to not pay attention to which schools the winners came from. Although we do have the second place winner here with us tonight, I believe. Before we acknowledge her, I'd like to introduce Kerry Lynch, the Academic Department Chair of Social Studies at the high school, to provide some brief background on what the contest consisted of this year.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce Kristen to you tonight, a student who's a fine member of our community, and also to tell you a little bit about the excellent work that's happening in the Social Studies Department. When the Greater Lowell Bar Association invited us to participate in the essay contest, several of us met after school and thought, how can we align the essay contest with our goals? We want students to be writing. We want students engaged in common assessment practices across the discipline, and also to have an opportunity to showcase their talents to win scholarship money. So Lisa Manasian, who's here tonight, she's Kristen's teacher, and Dan Murphy and myself put together an assignment sheet for students, asking them to write about the theme, which is separate branches, balanced powers. And we required all honors students in U.S. History 2 to write the essay. Each teacher was then asked to submit his or her favorite 2 essays that would then go on to a contest within the school. We put together a committee of Roxanne Howe, our operations and discipline manager, David Soulard and Leanne Sculia, our college counselors, and they heard 10 what they told me were excellent essays, and said all of them represented good work, but that Kristen stood out from those 10 and selected her to go on to the regional contest. And so tonight you'll hear Kristen read her essay, and you'll note that she combines storytelling and scholarship to demonstrate a very thorough understanding of the important concept of balanced powers in our United States government. Kristen is a junior in the Latin Lyceum. She's an excellent student in all areas, and she's an athlete and a member of student council. And she's here tonight to read to you. Kristen?
Every year, my mother drafts her famous chore chart
in which we sit at the kitchen table and vote on which chores each person should have. Seeing as I am the only daughter, I always get stuck doing dishes. One year, I decided I would help myself out and get the majority on my side by bringing my friends to the polls and having them cast their votes in me in favor of not doing dishes. Needless to say, I disrupted the system, and that did not go over so well. However, Dad worked his magic and got it so I only had to do the dishes every other night. Nevertheless, I realized in the debates that there are just some family matters where mothers have the final say. In fact, there are certain powers that each one of us has over other members of the family. The framers of the Constitution also realized that delegating power was the most efficient way for people to work together, so that not one person or branch of government got too much power. In the process to balance these powers, they developed a system of checks and balances. This is why, even in controversial situations, such as when Franklin Roosevelt attempted to pack the court with favorable judges, the plan fell short, and the system remained stable, all because of the principle of checks and balances. When it came to laying out the Constitution, the framers did their research. They started in ancient Greece over 2,000 years ago, where a man named Polybius wrote the Roman Constitution. He attempted to combine kingship, aristocracy, and democracy, each having certain powers. Polybius suggested that monarchy could become tyranny, aristocracy could fall into oligarchy, and democracy could degenerate into mob rule. This theory was expanded by French philosopher Baron de Montesquieu, who coined the term checks and balances. In his book, The Spirit of Laws, he identified 3 separate functions of government known in the United States as the legislative, executive, and judicial, in which each function should be under the control of one branch of government. This led to the idea of checks and balances, in which not only do the functions of government be allotted to different branches, but each should have certain checks or powers over the others. Montesquieu put it best when he said, "To prevent this abuse of power, it is necessary from the very nature of things that power should be a check to power." The Americans made some modifications of their own and created the American system of government. The framers created 3 branches of government: the legislative, executive, and judicial, each with certain powers over the other 2. The main job of the legislative branch was to make the laws, the executive to carry out the laws, and the judicial to interpret the laws. A prime example of checks and balances can be seen in the process of lawmaking. A law starts in the legislative branch, where it is proposed and voted on. Next, the president can either pass the law or veto it. However, even he does not have the final say, because the legislative branch can override the veto by a 2/3 majority. Furthermore, the law is then tested by the people, who can challenge it in the Supreme Court, and if they disagree, can declare it unconstitutional. Even Congress can further, with the states, create an amendment to the Constitution to allow the law. The list of checks and balances can go on, but in the end, they all have one purpose: to remove the chance of tyranny and absolute power of one person or group. As 19th century historian Lord Acton put it, power tends to corrupt, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. A notorious challenge to this system came in 1937, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt tried to add judges to the Supreme Court. In Roosevelt's attempt to end the Great Depression, he was very adamant that all his New Deal proposals were put into effect in order for his plan of recovery to work. He became extremely frustrated at the rulings of the Supreme Court, particularly the older judges, against his New Deal programs, such as the Agricultural Adjustment Act and the National Recovery Administration. Instead of waiting for a vacancy in one of the judicial seats, Roosevelt wanted a constitutional way to change the balance of the court in favor of his New Deal, and fast. On March 9, 1937, he presented a bill to relieve the workload on elderly judges by allowing the president to appoint 1 judge for each sitting judge over age 70 in 6 months. This would target the conservative judges who were against his New Deal policies. Although this plan was not technically against the Constitution, because there was no law saying that there could only be 9 judges, it was met with much opposition because it clashed with the system of checks and balances, and it was immediately rejected by the legislative branch. This in itself was an example of how the legislative branch has a check over the president. However, when Raymond Moley described it as an assault upon a fundamental principle in American government, he was talking about another way in which the plan went against the system of checks and balances. Appointing judges would have given the president indirect control of the Supreme Court by adding justices who favored his New Deal programs, and therefore one branch of government would have had more power than the others. And this would have disturbed the balance of power. Roosevelt's plan fell victim to the constitutional principle of checks and balances. Just like my attempt to bring friends to vote for me, Roosevelt's plan would disrupt the interwoven system of checks and balances that acts as the family of government. The framers of the Constitution created such a complex system that it has been more than adequate for over 200 years and has become an example to the rest of the world. The responsibilities of each branch are so meticulously assigned and intertwined that the government works as one big family to rule out tyranny and power of the mob. In the end, Roosevelt's plan failed because of the government's efficiency through checks and balances, just as did my attempt to relinquish my duties of dishes to my mom's power over chore management.
Kristen, thank you very much. As I said, it was a very difficult choice among the judges to determine just one winner. There were 4 other essays. There was a first-place winner who received a $1,000 scholarship. Kristen received a $250 scholarship, and the 3 third-place winners, $100 each. So the judges did have a very good time. The analogy to households didn't ring true to some of the judges, although I don't think you lost points with that. But most all of us grew up in households where the mother reigned supreme, and there was no check or balance on the power. But congratulations for a job well done. Okay, I think the next item is, anyone else to be recognized on this? Thank you very much, Kristen. Next item is a acceptance of the minutes of the school committee meeting from April 19th, 2006. Motion to approve the minutes by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. McHugh. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Under permission to enter, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, several contracts, many of which are amendments. Edutron Corporation, $33,000 to amend the existing contract to provide for 11 additional days of training for the Middle School Mathematics Institute on linear equations and their foundations. Early Childhood Associates, $1,500 to amend the existing contract for additional data collection and analysis needed for the Even Start grant as mandated by the Department of Education. Education Incorporated, $10,000 to provide academic support and tutoring services to special education children who are hospitalized. And Psychiatric Education Services Incorporated, $22,000 additional academic support and tutoring services for special education children who are hospitalized.
Any questions? Motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call, please.
Ms. Fattacante, Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Thank you. We have several memorials, 2 by the committee as a whole, one for James F. Sullivan, the former principal of the Moody Junior High School. Following his retirement, the James F. Sullivan School was named in his honor. Second, for Miriam T. Smith, former principal of the Varnum School for more than 20 years, and the aunt of Sue Duggan, the assistant superintendent for personnel and recruitment. Offered by Ms. Fattacante, Alice Murray, first secretary at the Daly Middle School, and Charles McSwiggan, the father of Elizabeth McSwiggan, a Lowell High School teacher. Offered by Mr. Leahy, for Kelly Brooks, Lowell High School graduate, was selected to the Lowell Sun All-Star Team each year from 1976 until 1980, and by Ms. Doherty, Rachel Chabot-Lefebvre, mother of Roxanne Howe, the Discipline and Operations Specialist at Lowell High School, and mother-in-law of Richard Howe Jr., the chair-elect of the citywide Parents' Council. If we could all rise in a moment of silence for them, please. May they rest in peace. Okay, I believe there are no matters under unfinished business or public participation, which brings us to the motions. The first motion is by Mr. Leahy, that the superintendent report back to the school committee on Title I funds, the number of reading specialists that were cut from the '07 budget, and the number of reading specialists that are left at our schools, seconded by Ms. Martin. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I just need a minute. We were passing papers around. This motion I put on, I'd like to just, if we could get a report, and speaking with one of my colleagues, I didn't know if this is the one we wanted to refer to another committee. Okay. But I'd just like to, it's important that the committee as a whole and that the public know how many Title I funds that we're losing throughout the past years. The reading specialists, I know at my own school, I think we've gone from 6 teachers down to 0 teachers. And I think that the reading specialists that I've met and that I've dealt with in my school, I mean, they really serve a crucial purpose. And just not having the funding there from the federal government to provide these positions in our job, it's just devastating. And we should be doing anything in our power to try to make as much noise as we can. So if we could at least get a report back and start making some progress on this to do what we can, and any suggestions by my colleagues would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Yes, I think this is a very important motion for us. We're looking at federal cuts that are going to be over $1 million in our school, which, as Mr. Leahy said, directly relates to Title I reading specialists. So I'm in favor of getting a handle on what those cuts really are. But the other side of this issue for me is what our needs are, especially in the K-8 grades, in terms of how many of our students are reading at grade level. And if not, those are of course the students who really need the reading specialists. So I was thinking that if we could kind of enhance that, I don't know if that would be an amendment to that motion, to ask for some data on our student reading scores. I think we do have that information because we're doing DRA testing. We're testing their reading levels in the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. To combine that with looking at what our losses are with this federal money not coming into the district, to really see what kind of priority we need to make, with these reading specialists and the loss of reading specialists. So I would refer that to the curriculum subcommittee. And do I have to do a formal amendment to that motion to ask for?
Yeah, we have to make it.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the motion to refer this matter to the curriculum subcommittee. Any objection to that, Mr. Leahy? Okay.
And to add, also with that, to add information about the needs, could kind of assess the reading levels of our students, our K-8 students, along with the losses we're going to be taking in reading specialists, to kind of put those two pieces together for the committee to look at in detail.
Okay. Ms. Martin.
I could just ask one quick question through you to the superintendent. Would we be able to pull this from the district report card and the school report cards? Reading levels, I believe, are tracked there, making comparisons based on student performance. Is that accurate?
We'll be able to get some information from the school report cards. I think we'd want a little bit different set of, some additional information in order to develop a clear a clearer picture for you of the extent of the needs.
But as we're taking each individual child's report card has a reading level on it, correct?
Oh, yes.
So that, and that's what's
Oh, I
then
see.
kind of what filters down to give us our school reading. My question is that we're going to be in the process of pulling that information together for the year end. Is that where we're going to be pulling the information from for our final report card?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. You're talking about the individual student report cards.
Which then, I believe, the information on individual student performance is what is lumped
Yes.
together to come up with the
Yes.
per school.
Yes.
So in the time frame that we're talking, I don't know where we are in that process, when it would make the most sense for us to have this meeting.
It frankly would make the most sense in the summer, because at the end of the school year, when the final reading assessment is indicated on the report card, would be the most logical time from a report preparation. But from a need question, I think you're looking for that information, at least some
Prior to the budget
indication
would be
prior to
when
that.
we'd need to have it.
Yes.
Would we be able to get at least a
So we can get
sense
some-
from the second report card?
We
Be
can,
able
we
to
can certainly
compile
get
that?
some, we can certainly provide some information.
Okay. If we could have that information when the subcommittee meets, that would be extremely helpful. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. Next motion by Mr. Leahy, that the superintendent report back to the committee about reading programs at Lowell High School, including the freshman academy and grades 10 through 12. Seconded by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. This motion is tied into the first one. And basically, with the budget coming up, I'm trying to get a handle on what our needs at the high school, what our true needs are, because I don't know if we actually do have readings teachers or specialist positions at the high school, but I do know we have, I'm not sure what the program's called right now, it's slipping my mind, but I did visit, the Read 180 programs, and I do know that we have a need for more at the high school. And this ties into the first one because obviously we don't catch everybody in the elementary grades through the middle schools. They end up at the high school. If they can't read, most likely, their success rate is tough. So I'd like to get a handle on maybe if we could, what we need at the high school, and that would be one priority that we could discuss at the end of the month for the budget. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. Next motion is by Mr. Leahy, that the superintendent provide a progress report on the college counselors at Lowell High School and also include the number of guidance counselors presently assigned to Lowell High School. Seconded by Ms. Martin. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I think it was earlier in the year, we did have a committee, a meeting on this and a presentation, I think. But I would like to just get an update to see how we feel the college counselors at the high school are doing, what the numbers have been for visits, how they feel it's working, and I do know that there is a need for more guidance counselors at the high school. We're doing the best we can, but if we did come across some more money, that would be on a wish list to add to the counselors for the students at the high school. We do have under 4,000 students, which is a big high school, and if we could, we need to have some more guidance counselors there to service the children at the school. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? That motion is also adopted. Next is subcommittee reports. I don't believe there are any. Anybody have any subcommittee reports? Okay, so the next item would be reports of the superintendent. The first item is the Department of Education's report on priorities for ed reform. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, committee members have a copy of a report. It's most of it is a presentation, a copy of a presentation that was made by the Department of Education to the Board of Education last week, in which the department outlined its perspective on the history of ed reform and what the different areas of emphasis were at different times. So, for example, they talk about the first couple of years of ed reform, the focus was on issues of governance and funding, as we got the foundation formula together, and then the governance issues, and with particular focus on the time and learning requirements. The next period of 96 to 2000 was a focus on the frameworks and the development of the standards and the testing program that would be associated with that. Then starting in 2000, the focus of the work at the department level, and therefore the work at the school level, at the district level, became student and school accountability. And then immediately tying into the new federal requirements, some of which were modeled after the Massachusetts Ed Reform Act. And then starting in 2004 and moving into the future, the focus, as the department sees it, is on building capacity within schools and districts for improvement and targeted assistance to schools and districts that need it in order to make progress. I thought the committee would find the department's perspective on what the good news is about the progress made, as well as where the problems are, actually quite similar to what we've seen here in Lowell. And they're very similar. So I was pleased to know that the Department of Education sees some of the same good news we've seen in Lowell, and they also see the next, the areas of concern as very similar to the areas that we've identified here. And quite remarkable similarity between some of the focus, the strategies that the Department of Ed sees the state needing to use to improve overall performance, and some of the strategies that we are using here. I thought it was particularly timely, and committee members know that last week I had the opportunity to be on Beacon Hill, where Stand for Children organized a rally of people from a number of different communities. Lowell High School senior Christy Oniechi spoke, and Christy was a kindergarten youngster in the first year of ed reform, and she was in Lowell's first full-day kindergarten. And if Ms. Vandecandy was here, I would give her directly some credit for investing the first new ed reform monies in the expansion of kindergarten from half-day to full-day. So Christy is an example of someone who's gone through and each step of the way has seen some improvements because of what we've been able to do with funds and with some of the other changes wrought by ed reform. She's now stood there as a senior, representing Lowell High School terrifically, but talking about the losses that she's been experiencing over the last couple of years at the high school as funding has become very, very tight. The one piece I would add is that the Department of Education made some assumptions about federal funding that have proven not to be accurate, so that some of the funding that they anticipated being able to get from the federal government to support this work have not been forthcoming. In Lowell alone, Congressman Meehan has pointed out that the Title I has fallen short of the promise by more than $10 million today. So we would have $10 million more to be spending on the key initiatives that we're working on if the federal government had met its promise, had kept its promise under No Child Left Behind. And that's affecting both Lowell and the state level. I'd welcome any questions.
Oh, sorry.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment, something that kind of jumped out at me when they compared Massachusetts to the nation. We came out pretty well. 14 years in a row, our SAT scores have been going up. We are above the national average in SAT scores. I mean, I felt very proud to be part of a state that has really good public schools for the most part. When you look at the number of our students who go on from high school into college, graduate high school, start college, get a second-year degree, earn a higher degree, we're almost 8% across the board higher than the national average. But then when you look at they have a chart that talks about the percentage of ninth grade students graduating from high school. I guess the date 2002, so that's kind of old data. But what concerned me, and I think we're seeing that struggle here in Lowell too, is the Latino students. Our percentage in Massachusetts, we only have 46% of our Latino students graduating high school in Massachusetts, when the national average was 52%. So here's a place where we drop below the national average. And I think in terms of what we've come to find out about the issues second language learners face, we've realized that we need to put more resources into those students early on. And one thing I was encouraged about last week, the Mass Association for School Committee Members had their day on the Hill when we had to meet with state legislators and stuff like that. Some of the state legislators were telling us that they're looking at changing the Chapter 70 funding formula, which if you look at the earlier report, as Dr. Baer mentioned, that was established in '94, so it's over 10 years old now. But they're looking at the funding and seeing that, you know, children who come from poverty, children who have language issues need more resources. And I'm just hopeful that we're going to see some funding to really get those numbers up and provide those services to the children early on so we don't lag behind the national, and in fact, increase our rate of graduation for our Latino students. That was just something that jumped out at me, that overall the state's doing great compared to the rest of the country, except in this area we don't seem to be even holding our own. And by the way, the national average is only 52%, so it's not great to begin with. But clearly we need to look at the language issue early on. Thank you.
Motion to accept the, Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I just want to make a couple of comments also. Ms. Doherty pointed out that there is a lot of success in here for Massachusetts, but again, it's not the only thing, but it comes down to funding. And the student that spoke with you, Madam Superintendent, she made a good point. She's been on that cusp and she's been part of it from the start, but now we're losing a lot of funding. And we need that funding to keep this going in Massachusetts and in Lowell. And again, it comes down to reading. Maybe that's part of the problem with the Latino students, with the second language students. It's the reading. And if we don't have the money to invest now, we're going to pay later for it. So, but overall, the report was good and very positive for us. So, and I think we did see you down there at the Day on the Hill. There was I don't know if there was much coverage in the sun, but we saw you there and you did a nice job speaking for Lowell and Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress and place on file by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next item is a report from the superintendent on the high school accreditation.
Yes, as committee members know, the high school is required to report on 1 year after the completion of its accreditation. It's required to report 1 year later on progress it has made on the recommendations made by the New England Association. The high school prepared a comprehensive report, sent it to the New England Association, and we've received back a response in which the Commission is particularly pleased to note a number of very active steps that have been taken at the high school, and some of them by this committee, to support the work of the high school and to address some of the most pressing needs that appeared in the accreditation report. So that, for example, and this was made possible through a focus on the high school budget last year, so the budget for this year had increases in really only one area, and that was the high school. And you can see they're reflected here. The hiring of 4 additional teachers for the freshman academy, who work as a team to support needs of students most at risk, reduction in class size in the freshman academy, the hiring of 4 additional building administrators, 2 of whom are working with the freshman academy and 2 with the other 3 grades, the acquisition of the entire McDonough Center to house the freshman academy, the provision of all new computers in the media center and the computer labs and the mobile computers that are now available at the freshman academy, so that the addition of 2 additional guidance counselors at the high school that has reduced the caseload. These were all steps taken by the committee on recommendation of the headmaster and myself last year that have really earned a strong and positive report from the New England Association. So I wanted, I know the headmaster joins me in thanking the committee for the support provided in the last budget so that we could present such a positive report to the New England Association. Again, I'd welcome any questions.
Any questions or comments? Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Leahy, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Report is accepted. The next report is on the FY07 budget preview.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. The committee has the most updated version of this budget preview distributed by Mr. Lang this evening. Committee members had asked that before I bring forward a budget recommendation for fiscal year 07, that I provide the committee with a preview. So this is a preview. It's the work in progress to develop the budget, and I welcome direction from the school committee. Just walking people through this a little bit, I start with the grant losses. And you can see that we face a shortage of $1.9 million in grant funds this year. The $550,000 listed under other federal grants were losses that we anticipated. These were grant programs that we anticipated, for example, the Teaching U.S. History program, and we knew it was a 3-year grant. This year is the last year of it, so we knew that was ending and we were planning for it. But the remaining $1.4 million in shortage, we had not anticipated. This is a major cutback in federal funding for Lowell, and you can see it represents, in the case of Title I, a full 10% of the largest grant that we get. It's a $1 million loss in Title I alone. A 50% cut in the small technology grant that the federal government provides to all school districts, 25% loss in the Safe and Drug-Free Schools grant, and the complete elimination of Title V of the federal grant program, which enabled us to fund special programs. The bulk of that funding was used to supplement the budget of the Bridge program at the Riverside School. So it's alternative programs. So that we start the budget process aware of a tremendous loss of grant funding. So we are in the process of developing 4 levels of budget. The first I'm describing probably inaccurately as a level service budget. And I say level service, it's not level service because it doesn't make up for any of the lost grant funds. But for lack of a better term, I've identified here some of the assumptions that we're making as we develop that budget. So it's a level service budget from the point of view of the local budget, not level service in terms of all the resources we have available. So that in that budget, we're incorporating all of the known step and lane changes, all the anticipated costs for sick leave buyback and any other compensation obligations, but it does not include dollars for negotiated salary increases. It includes all known retirements and resignations and has an assumption built in that we would fill the positions with teachers on average at the master's step 2 level. It includes all the known increases that we're facing in utilities, special education, transportation, and et cetera. And I just want to share with you what some of those are. We anticipate in utilities alone that we have to increase the budget for next year by $550,000. In special ed transportation, we anticipate increasing the budget, having to increase the budget by $225,000. The Bridge program by almost $100,000. Employee benefits, the health insurance, we anticipate having to budget an increase of $500,000. And for sick leave buyback, because of course we have an unprecedented number of members of our staff retiring, sick leave buyback will go up by, we anticipate, by $450,000. So we have to absorb all those costs into the budget to develop the level service budget. We're also, I'm assuming that we're going ahead with eliminating modular classrooms where we can. So this calls for removing the modular classrooms at the Riley School because we're able to do that now in terms of enrollment as that last strand sixth strand of classes graduates. This level service budget incorporates efficiencies. For example, the savings we anticipate by changing the start and stop time of schools, the savings we anticipate in busing costs. It does add funds from the one grant loss that will put us in legal jeopardy, and that's the bridge program. So that's the level service budget. Obviously, a very tight budget does not address any of the unmet needs, nor essentially any of the grant losses. The next budget we're developing is what we're calling, at this point, the trade-off budget. So it has everything from that first level service budget, but then it also goes through and looks at all the losses that we're facing from grants, and also all the other developing needs. And I've asked the administrators to do trades. That is, take something that you're currently doing and in order to keep or add something that's even more important to do. There's no new cost associated with the trade-off budget, but it reallocates resources to more tightly focus on our priorities and to attempt to compensate for that incredible loss of grant funds, particularly in Title I. So as an example, and there's a preliminary approval I'm looking for tonight, is to eliminate a vacant ETC, Educational Team Chairperson role at the high school, and replace it with a restoration of the Academic Chair for Special Education position. Another, eliminating a vacant business teacher position at the high school and replacing it with a reading teacher position. So again, it's shifting priorities, reorganizing to try to take very limited resources and apply them more in a even more focused way on the most important priorities of the district. Another example is eliminating a music position at a middle school and replacing it with a reading position. So again, it's making some very difficult trade-offs, but trying to take, if there were no more money available than the level service budget, it's how we would reallocate, how I would recommend reallocating resources to try to meet the most critical needs. The next budget that we're developing, I'm calling the essential needs budget. So it's everything in the level service budget and everything in the trade-off budget. But it adds another nearly $500,000 in cost for special education programs and services. We've completed the coordinated review by the Department of Education that's taken a look at, among other things, our special education services, looking at compliance issues in particular. And we are out of compliance in some areas, and the primary cause has to do with that we simply don't have the level of staffing that we need to meet our obligations. Since the year 2000, we've actually reduced the number of positions in special education by 25. I don't know a school system in the Commonwealth that hasn't increased staffing in special education since 2000. We've decreased it out of the local budget by 25 positions. The way we've done that and not been completely out of compliance is that we have devoted almost every single grant for special education to personnel positions. So that, for example, we opened the LeBlanc School as an alternative special education school, and virtually every position in that school is paid for through the federal entitlement grant. So that we have increased positions, but all from the grants, and we simply, there's no more money in the grants for any additional positions. So we're at a position where we really have no choice after 5 years of reducing the local budget commitment to special education. We need to make up for that in a very, very frugal way with a couple of absolutely critical positions. For example, the number of youngsters, very young children, diagnosed with pervasive developmental delay continues to skyrocket here in Lowell as it has all over the state and, in fact, nationally. We need another class. So we need a teacher and a paraprofessional for youngsters we've identified. We know who they are. They're 4 years old. They're entitled to a public school education in Lowell. We do not have the staff available to do that. Similarly, at the alternative school, at the Malloy, the high school, we simply do not have enough special education time to meet the individual education plans of the youngsters being referred to the alternative school. The only safe placement for them is at the Malloy. We need to meet their needs at that site. If we don't meet their needs there, we'll have to send them out of district at a cost considerably higher than this cost. We need to, in addition, take the steps that were recommended in the special ed DLI report several years ago that we simply haven't had the money to do, but now we need to do because we're not able to meet the timelines for referral and for testing. We need to develop the school-based teams of educational team chair and psychologists. So we need additional positions there. So clearly we'll in the budget that you receive, there'll be more detail about this and plenty of opportunity to talk about it, but I wanted to give you a flavor of that the essential needs budget is focusing on those special education needs that we are unable to meet, and we need to be in compliance. Our only alternative, if we're not meeting the needs here, is that we'll have to meet them out of district at much higher cost for tuition and transportation. So that's the essential needs budget that I'm preparing. And then I've got a fourth budget, which is what I'm calling, for lack of a better term, important needs budget. They are essential also. So I'm not sure if important quite captures what I'm trying to convey here. But it's everything in the essential needs budget, plus it attempts to restore and or add programs or services to meet only some of the most important unmet needs. And on the page 3 of the preview, I've identified some of the restorations or additions that we're considering, and we'll bring a final set of recommendations to you on May 17th when we formally present the budget. But this gives you a flavor of the area of needs that are being identified. It does not meet anywhere near all of our needs. I want to be clear about it. It's a very, very frugal list. At the bottom of page 3, these are preliminary estimates for the budgets being developed. The current budget is $128,712,000, so $128.7 million. The level service budget would increase by $2.5 million, which is just under 2%. The trade-off budget, of course, is the same because that was the sort of rules under which we're developing it. The essential needs budget adds another $490,000, bringing the total increase over the current year to about $3 million, or 2.3%. The important needs budget adds another $2.7 million, bringing the total increase to $5.7 million, or 4.43%. So I hope this is, and then the last page, preliminary estimates of revenue. This year's Chapter 70 allocation is $108.4 million. The governor's budget calls for an increase for Lowell of $3.1 million. The House budget, only $800,000 increase. And we're counting on the Senate, which we do believe that the Senate is making a proposal to change the funding formula to give a higher factor, more money for youngsters with who are English language learners or who come from families who are poor. That will help us. We're hoping that number is at least as high as the governor's and hopefully considerably higher. But we're hoping that will be out this week or next. But until we have that number, that's going to be a critical number in looking at the budget. So this is a sober information for the committee. I'd welcome any direction. I hope this was responsive to the request for a preview. And of course, you have on the last page the history of the city's contribution, the Chapter 70 contribution through this year. So if there's additional information you'd like as part of the budget, I'd welcome that. If there's direction you'd like to give me as we over the next 2 weeks, complete budget deliberations, I'd welcome that.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes, through you to the superintendent, Your Honor. I noticed under your important needs budget, which I would include with critical needs, I think all the stuff and more we need, but I noticed that under the elementary schools, you have cited it as summer school expansion for $300,000. And now I had seen earlier correspondence from you that had summer school for elementary students in the second tier if we had funding. So is this the total amount for summer school? But where you have the word expansion, it's making me think that there is some summer school prior to this number.
We have funds for a very modest summer school program this year. Preschool, I'm going to ask Ms. Franco to comment.
Summer school will occur for the 100 preschool children who have not gone to school before kindergarten, and also for middle school. Those are the only schools that we have. There are only 4 sites for the children who, under our promotion and retention policy, need to have that summer school experience. So those are the only summer school sessions. And there will be a special education program mandated by IEPs at the the McAuliffe School and the McAvenue School for the PDD students.
Well, thank you, but that just confirms my concern. I am really concerned that we have children, K to 4th grade, who we know aren't reading at grade level, who we know that if we give them the services to get them up to grade level, we either pay now or we pay more later, and all kinds of other problems that, for me personally, I would like to really look at making that summer school, it's got to be a priority up there. Summer school for elementary children. I mean, definitely I wouldn't want to take it away from the pre-K kids. They also need it. And the kids, the middle school kids who may be retained. So I'm just saying we've got to put it, it's got to be a priority to me. It just doesn't make sense to not give these kids the services. We, identify that they need help in reading and give it to them in the summer so that they can start at, closer to their grade level. My other question has to do with the high school. This is still under your important needs budget. You mentioned the science department chair. I know science is on the horizon. It's going to be MCAS test soon, and I know that was part of what the reaccreditation committee faulted us on, that we don't have enough science programs and labs, and I'm just wondering, is there any thought to science labs in here too? I mean, to just have a science chair and to try to get our science curriculum up to speed, but if we don't have the labs that our kids can actually be doing the hands-on science works, it just doesn't seem like enough to me. That would also be something I would want you to be looking at. And then my final point is, even if we get to your important needs budget, everything all told, we're looking at a 4.43% increase in our budget. And I think that's more than reasonable, given how costs have gone up, how we all know costs have gone up. If we can continue to make progress with only a 4.4% increase in our budget, I think we're doing pretty well at looking at trying to be as efficient as possible. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind is we have to continue to make progress. That's really the key thing. We're talking about the education of 15,000 children. So I just want to end on that. Sorry. Thank
You, Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. Through you to the superintendent. I'm really happy to see the trade-off part of the budget. I think that's really a real good chance for the principals to take a look at how they're operating their building and really say, what do I really, really need? If possible, I don't need an explanation tonight, but could I just get maybe some information of the rationale why they're doing that? Because I'm not quite sure what the ETC position, for example, at the high school does, and why they're willing to trade that for the academic chair. So I'd like to see some information of duties, what they actually do now. I know it's open, which is, I think, a great time to reevaluate, but I just want to see if that is, I'm sure if in a perfect world they'd want both, but why, I have a feeling that has something to do with direct services to students versus a chair who's more of a overseeing in, the department. So I'd like to see why they are doing this. And at the middle school, this is only one middle school that's looking to, on the last one, that item D you have listed there, to the music position for the reading position, that's only one school that's looking to do that? Okay, as part of that, maybe you can go back and just see how that would be with all the other buildings, because I have to tell you, whoever's bringing this forward, it's a great idea. As I think we just heard, reading has to be the focus. And not that I want to ever take away the arts, but I'd like to see what's left for the arts in that building, but I'm applauding their effort to really understand what we're trying to do with our children and look at that. So if we could just get some more, definitions on this so we can have it for our budget meetings, that'd be really appreciated.
Madam Superintendent?
Yes, absolutely intend to provide additional information. There's a joint meeting of the Special Ed Subcommittee and a couple of other subcommittees on Monday, and we'll be bringing, the whole reorganization plan for special education, of which this is part, to you, so that you can see a draft of the plan that we're trying to put in place that addresses a number of needs that have grown out of the original DLI study, the coordinated review, some earlier discussion at the subcommittee level much earlier in the school year, and we've really put together a plan because we're trying to do it in the context of budget. We're trying to do it obviously as inexpensively as we can, but we've got to improve our ability to deliver high-quality services in that area.
Mr. Leary?
Thank you, Mayor. Quickly, Madam Superintendent, the grant losses, is this actual fact at this point in time, or is this preparation?
These are the best estimates we have from the Department of Education, which has information about what its allocation from the federal government is, and these are their best estimates at this point for how they will affect Lowell.
Okay. Any time frames when the actuals will be made available, or we're just...
I think they're going to vary. I mean, we're hearing that we'll get some information, on one small grant next week, but June is really the realistic timetable for this to really get firmed up.
Okay, great. And another question you might not have an answer for right now, regarding the paraprofessionals. I know it was an issue that a lot of those folks will be not returning, and obviously we'll have unemployment cost. Did your numbers here in any of these budgets factor in? I'm assuming it is factoring in. You'll have an additional cost in that area. If far as an answer right now, probably that's something we shouldn't be looking for. I'm not sure you would be able to give that answer right now. But
well, I would like to report that we started the year with nearly 150 of our paraprofessionals not yet meeting the federal standards, and as of Monday of this week, that number was down to 19. And so it's been a terrific effort by Assistant Superintendent Duggan, Joyce Tapper-Benham, our Coordinator of Professional Development, principals, Deb Westaway in the Special Education Department. They've done just a terrific job of helping paraprofessionals identify the ways that they can achieve that status. So I think it's a terrific accomplishment for us to go. We have over 300 and some odd paraprofessionals, and we're down to 19 that haven't yet met the standard, and a number of those are scheduled to take a test, scheduled to finish some things. So I think we're going to get that number down below 19 before it's out. And we're going to give folks a chance right up to August to meet the requirements. We're really trying to support them to be able to do that. So where we had anticipated some really significant costs 3 months ago,
well, that's
now
good.
that we've got the number down, we've got it to a much more manageable number.
Good. Well, my hat's off to the administration and to the union and to the folks actually passing these requirements. In addition, I just want to quickly say I agree with Committeeman McHugh regarding the trade-offs. I'd like to get more information on that. I think it's really good brainstorming in terms of how to spend money efficiently. I'm also looking forward to looking at the trifecta subcommittee meeting we're going to have on Monday. Filling the open positions is something we need to take very seriously. If there's any cost savings with low impact, we need to sure we achieve them. But I appreciate this. I think this is a good working document, and I appreciate all the effort your folks went into putting it together.
Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. To the superintendent. I had a couple of comments. I know, we all know this year that the budget's going to be tight, and some of the comments made here tonight, we do have to look at combining all the positions that we can. I mean, there's no other way. We have to deal with the money that we're dealt with this year, and I know it's not an easy task, but If any positions can be combined, we're gonna have to take a look at that. On page 2, under the trade-off budget, where it did say eliminate one music position to add a reading position, does that mean the school has 2 music teachers already? Or they're not gonna have any music?
The students will still have some music programs, so that no school would be without a music program.
Okay.
But there
I
would
mean,
be-
something like that is, maybe we could combine reading with music. I mean, we're gonna have to do some of these things. You know, it may strike us as being funny now, but maybe they can read what they're gonna sing. I mean, we have to be creative, because we can't eliminate reading, but when you go to these schools, the music programs they have, I mean, these are the things that the kids look forward to every year, and it what keeps the spirit up in the school. So reading is important, but to eliminate all the music, it's devastating.
Right. No, absolutely true. We've got a number of art teachers working to develop what we're calling math art, where the art curriculum is built around developing understandings of patterns and geometry, so that youngsters are really learning mathematics through art. So
Sure.
we're working on exactly that kind of thing.
Sometimes they don't even realize they're learning math while they're doing the art. Another thing, I had a discussion today with some people about the SPED department, and maybe something to look at also is if we did incorporate some reading specialists, maybe we wouldn't be saving as much money, but we could be trimming down or speeding up the SPED cycle, where kids have to wait. We have a huge list of children that are on waiting lists to be evaluated. Instead of tying up a team of 8, and all they really need is a reading, we just put them right into these reading positions, and they're not bogging down the SPED program. So that's something else we could look at. And again, it may not save us money, but it's gonna hopefully speed up some, get the bog caseloads down in the SPED department. As far as some of the eliminations for at the Riley for the what are we getting rid of at the Riley? The portables, modulars. Are there any other modulars we're looking to get rid of this year then?
I don't think that we can yet get rid of any middle school ones, because the enrollment at the middle schools is not going to go down for a little bit longer, so that we can't do without those classrooms yet.
Okay. And then one other thing I wanted to ask too is, when I think we did come up with our schedule for discussing the budget. Maybe the first night when we get our budget, as a committee, we could decide to do our opening. We kind of always have our opening speeches, and it takes, 10, 15 minutes out of all of us. Maybe we could do that the night of the handout, and then the next time we meet to go through the budget, that would save us, maybe an hour's time. So that's something we could also think of. And the last comment I wanted to make to you, Mr. Mayor, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. It would help us if we could understand some money issues. I know everybody's in a tight spot, but what we need to understand on our side is just where are all the new taxes going? If they're not realized yet, when are they going to be realized? Because there's so much construction going on in the city that you would think that we have more money coming in. So it would be helpful to me, and I suppose the committee, that if we could just understand that process, because even people on the street come up to me and say, well, geez, you're looking for money every year, all this building going on, we should have new taxes coming in. So is that money that we see, or is that money, where does that go? I don't know. So I think we just need to be all on the same page. Last night when I was watching the meeting, I hate to hear the terms our side and their side. We're all one city. The city has a budget, the school committee has a budget, but we're not trying to take money out of the city. The city shouldn't feel like, geez, we have to just give the school so much and let them survive. We want to work together, so I think it would just kind of help us to understand where all the new money for taxes goes. And, you know, if you do have losses, we have on our sheets tonight almost $2 million in grant losses. So I don't know, does the city lose money like that? They probably do, but I don't know. So I just want it to be out there that, you know, this is what we're going up against. It'd be nice to know what the city's going up against. There's no need for the school committee or the city councilors to be pointing fingers at each other. And I know that most of the councilors don't, but I didn't appreciate some of the comments made last night on the floor. You know, we're all here together. And I know you want to work with us. I think most of the council does. So if we could understand each other's position, it would just help us. So when it comes down to this, we're not in a battle again, you know, everybody's looking for money, but let's not start a fight over this, and let's do the best we can.
Well,
Thank you.
let me, to answer your question about the new growth, I mean, there is new tax revenue that does come into the city, and that will be allocated accordingly. I would expect that part of the city's contribution to the school department budget will increase, and part of that would get funded out of that new tax revenue. I mean, if we do experience an increase in Chapter 70 state aid, as we hope, that's going to raise the level of contribution required by the city, which has been met in the past, and I anticipate will be met again. So, and there are just the costs we've talked about here tonight: increased health insurance, increased utilities, increased energy, gasoline for police and
Sure, it
fire.
goes up on both
know,
sides,
It's so it's and just from what I know personally about, you know, where we were at the end of last year, I'm anticipating a very difficult environment without and you know, there'll be talk about unfilled positions in the city budget as well. So it's going to be a very difficult year, I think, for all parts of government at all levels of government, and that's just the reality that we're in.
Sure.
So I don't, you know, think it needs to get contentious, but sometimes it does, because clearly there will be different priorities that folks in this committee have than certain city councilors have, and vice versa. So, you know, I think I agree that it can be cordial as best it can be, but it's going to be, I anticipate, a very difficult budget season for all branches of government.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but there will be new growth, and that will be anticipated in the city revenue figures.
All right, it just would help, at least for me. I mean, I don't know, I don't understand the city side, I'll be frank, you know, and maybe I just need to sit down with somebody and get an explanation on where all the money goes and how it's divided up, but that's just the thinking out there. Everybody's thinking, well, we've got all this new growth, we should be doing a little bit better, you know, we should be able to add to the police and the fire and the schools and the roads and whatever, so, thank you.
Okay. Anything further on this item? Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The motion is adopted. The next report is on the Administrative Apprentice Program.
Yes, committee members asked that I develop for its consideration a proposal for an administrator preparation program. So you have a brief report from me outlining a proposed apprentice program that would build on what we've learned from the program that we put in place in 2002, 2003, which had to be scaled back radically starting in 2003, 2004, when we faced the large budget cuts. We have learned from that, as I point out in the report. We have had 11 apprentices since 2002, 2003, and as of now, 5 of those 11 are currently administrators in Lowell, so serving in administrator positions in Lowell. 3 are currently administrators outside of Lowell. So they left Lowell to become administrators in other districts. One has resigned for medical reasons, and two remain on the faculty. So that's the outcome of the apprentice program that we've had in place thus far. I outlined on page 2 a preliminary proposal that's designed to be as cost-effective as possible, identify needs that we have in the district that we're either already paying for by running summer school programs, where those programs service as administrators in those programs, which is something we have to have the funds for anyway. That would become the apprentice placement, and the responsibility would fall on the apprentices to participate in a series of courses together that would be identified by us. They'd be supervised by experienced members of our staff, and we would attempt to provide a very meaningful experience for 10 members of our staff over a 2-year period. The annual cost, as I've outlined here, would be approximately $170,000. So I'd welcome, if this looks like something you'd like us to detail, develop more planning on, I would do so. But I await school committee direction on this.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. I think looking at this, it certainly it answers some very real concerns that this committee has expressed in terms of wanting to make this type of investment in our staff, wanting to be able to provide current staff with exceptional opportunities for professional development that not inconsequently we bear the fruits of when we have individuals who have gone through good training that is very specific to the needs of our district. I think there's a lot contained in here, and there, you know, as I looked through it, I recognize it's just a first pass at this, but I would like to recommend that we refer this to the Personnel Subcommittee, because even for myself, as I went through this quickly, there are some areas that I really would like to have a little more discussion on, and that's even before we start talking about the hardcore numbers of the project. So I would make that in the form of a motion that we refer this proposal to the Personnel Subcommittee, and I would welcome from the superintendent any kind of recommended time frame for that. Because again, the critical issue is going to be ensuring that if we do move forward, that the budget takes that into account.
What we could do is perhaps have a preliminary discussion on Monday evening, next week when those committees are.
That would be the meeting at 8:30 p.m.?
Yes.
Sure.
All right, so there's a motion to refer this matter to the Personnel Subcommittee by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. McHugh. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. I just had a couple of comments too. I'm glad that we're going to refer this to the to a subcommittee. But on the second page, Madam Superintendent, where the numbers are for salaries, where it says estimated added annual cost,
Yes.
are those numbers? How do you arrive at the numbers? Are those the figures? Is it per diem or per? How do you?
It's taking the salary, typically a person who's in an apprentice role to be an administrator would be near the top of the salary scale, would be an experienced, proven teacher. So it'd be someone high on the salary schedule, and we would need to replace the portion of the teaching time that we would need to replace the teaching time that's lost. So if at the high school, for example, someone would be, say, teaching 2 periods, but then not teaching 3 of the periods they normally teach. We'd need to provide a teacher for those three classes. So that's how the cost is derived.
All right.
And we don't hire part-time teachers, so this would all have to be worked out with how many classes we need. But the net additional cost is the equivalent of 3/5 of a teaching cost.
Okay, but there's no extra cost in there, like these, you wouldn't pay these people
No.
to go do a, okay.
No, I mean, this is they would be paid their regular teacher salary, and they'd have a set of expectations. Nobody's being required to do this. This is
Right.
voluntary, so it's in effect a paid
Yeah.
apprenticeship, a paid field experience, which sometimes people end up having to pay, for themselves to do. So this is really, I think, quite a favorable opportunity for an interested member of the staff.
Okay, because I was gonna say, we can talk about this at the subcommittee, but there must be some things that can be done after school that
Oh,
people can go on their own time, and if they're interested, they're making the time available to, better themselves, so it
Absolutely.
shouldn't actually always cost us time out of the classroom. So maybe we can look at that too. There's gotta be things that they can do after school hours, to take courses or whatever.
Well, that's built in here. But to have a really powerful apprenticeship and to be doing something that we really need done, it will be during the school day.
All
So in
right,
the
I
case
can
of the high school,
understand that,
it would be
sure.
assisting. The idea is to have one apprentice working in each of the 4 houses, because we know the housemaster role is a very demanding role. That the needs are really huge with only one person to do it. We know we have need for support there. This becomes in a low-cost way to meet needs, and at the same time provide a powerful apprentice experience for an aspiring administrator.
Okay, but,
If I weren't doing the apprentice program, the headmasters already had proposed that we hire assistant housemasters. I mean, one of the needs that the headmaster has said at the high school is to have an assistant housemaster for each of the 4 houses. This is a less costly way to begin to address a set of really critical needs at the high school. So that's the thinking here.
all right, but as long as we take a look at some after hours, because, it's not ideal, but it's free. And like our overall budget, we're gonna have to do with the best we can, and we don't have an ideal situation, but it's better than nothing, so, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam Superintendent, just one question from me. None of the budget scenarios you presented earlier incorporate this program, I assume. Is that correct?
Actually, I did put it in the important needs budget. I included the costs there.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to refer this to the Personnel Subcommittee, say aye. Any opposed? The matter is referred to the Personnel Subcommittee. Next report is on student tardiness at Lowell High School.
Yes, you have a report prepared by the headmaster in response to a motion by committee member McHugh, reporting on tardiness at the high school. I imagine the committee will want to forward this to the Lowell High School Subcommittee, and I believe it's on the agenda for tomorrow night's subcommittee meeting.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes, I would also recommend that we send this to the Lowell High School Subcommittee, and I'll put that in form of motion at the end. But I don't want to, I will speak briefly about it. I guess, first I want to say thank you. There's a lot of information here. It's actually very in-depth, more than I thought I would get. But what it shows is exactly what I thought was happening, that the children are coming in late on a regular basis, and there's some attempt to try to address it, but it's just not working. And I think that was the original intention that I was trying to find. If it's not working, what do we need to do to fix it? And I think I would applaud the headmaster for, as part of his overall summary, I didn't ask for these questions, but he put in 4 questions as part of his survey and gathering information, which I kind of liked. I thought it really started to point us in the direction of where do we need to do to address the issue of handling tardiness. And I think his first question is, please describe the process you follow in dealing with tardiness of students. And I think what we're looking for is a uniform process that's being handled throughout all the different A house, B house, the freshman camp. All the houses are working the same way on it dealing with. So it's not that one's just doing it this way and one's doing it another way. So we got some information regarding what they're doing on addressing the issue. The second question is, in dealing with tardiness students, is dealing with tardy students a priority? And if not, what are your priorities? And depending on which report you go through, you know, the lists vary, but you can see that all the administrative duties that they have to handle on a day-to-day basis, this is just another one that tends to, I get a sense it has some priority, but it hasn't been pushed to the top. Because when we look at the numbers, it's astonishing that we have around 3,600 students at the high school. We average 417 students come in late every single day. That's about 12% of our population is coming in late every day. And what bothered me is we pushed back the start of school last year. And we're still getting this kind of students coming in late every day. And it didn't come out in this report, but I still have to believe that what I was hearing from students is that there didn't seem to be a big rush to get in here because we have their first 20 minutes of the day to go over announcements and everything else. So really they said, well, I got an extra 20 minutes to get to my first class of the day, and that's what really counts as far as the process. They look at that opening of the 20 minutes to take attendance and pass out announcements as kind of a waste of their time, and there's no big rush. And what this report also shows is that the number of students who are coming in late and then be assigned detention aren't going. And I think that's the most bothersome part that really I came away from in looking at it, that there is an attempt to assign detentions. And I found that, like the freshman academy, they had 900, and the time frame that we looked for over a month was roughly 960 students were tardy. 862 were assigned detention. So, I say, geez, that's a great effort. They're trying to make it. But only 77 attended. That's 9% of who was assigned. So my question is, which I think we got to address, what are we doing from that point? Are we just saying, oh, well, life goes on, and I got to deal with 1,000 other things, so this just doesn't become an issue? And it's not to pick on that individual group. This is uniform across the boards. I think some of them have a better track record. Some aren't even assigning detention. I mean, one of the houses has 1,354 kids late for the period. Only 60 were assigned detention.
Yes.
So obviously, they just felt that it wasn't probably a top priority in that house to assign detentions. It's like, okay, you're tired, go to your class, see you later. And I guess you could look at, well, it's great that at least they're here, but I think the focus is getting the students in on time, getting them to their classes, and let's work on that. So, I mean, there's work that has to be done here, and I think that in dealing with it, they talked about the dealings that an administrator has to do. It's funny how we're talking about the program we just talked about, expanding, assisting these people. If you read through, you can see there's 1,000 things going on every day in their office with disciplinary issues, all kinds of things. I found one of the issues, I think somewhere in one of the reports, there was a mention of the in-house, not enough room at the in-house detention or the suspension when they're in-house. And I would find that very difficult where we just moved a ton of freshmen over to the other building. You would think there would be some space available to allow students who aren't attending on a regular basis or who actually are skipping the detentions after a couple times saying, well, now you're going to get in-house. And to hear one of the people say that there's not enough room to send the kids, I find that to be a little bit of a problem. I would imagine there could be some space. And that kind of came under what would you require, to make this more effective, and that was what they were talking about. But also, I think the one important thing they talked about was the student database problem that we've already addressed. So I think as this is unfolding, we've already taken steps, and I brought that up a long time ago, that if that student database was not working, let's look at options. And I'm glad that I believe it was the last meeting, we actually approved the new implementation of that X2 program so that it'll be in place for September. So I think there are some steps that are going to help. I definitely want to follow this up in the fall, because I think that some of the things that they're identifying uniformly, we're making those steps already. And I just don't want to feel that they just threw that out there as a way to give us some, rationale to improve it. But we are following those, and we are making those steps in the right direction. And you can see that the home phone calls, there's a lot of other issues that are going into this. There's a ton of information in here that we need to go through. But I have to tell you, I think the goal is to get the children in on time is really what it's about, and making this a priority. And I think sometimes I do understand, as an administrator, they are all very busy, but this is part of their job. This is an important part, and there has to be some follow-through on the detention. I think that's the one piece I did not see in the report. What is going to be the plan to ensure if they are given detention and do not attend, what are we doing? So I think there's one piece of information that's going to have to be followed up on, is that. So I think this can go to the subcommittee. I think they can continue to look through it and work with the headmaster on addressing a lot of these issues. And we've made steps, and we've made positive steps to move forward, but I still think there's work to do here. And so I want to thank him for compiling this report and actually even taking it to another level by really giving us some additional information that I did not ask for, but it is very helpful in analyzing this problem. So I look forward to seeing the subcommittee's results on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Just briefly, I have to say, in looking over this material, and it's quite thick, my first impression was just one of being totally overwhelmed. Not only thinking about the staff at the high school who are already stretched in terms of pulling this information together, but just realizing what a huge challenge it is every day. I look at this as, we have a real issue, and I don't think it's just in Lowell. I think that this is across the country with attendance and tardiness, especially at the high school level. I guess some of the other things that jumped out at me, that I think it's a culture of change we're looking at, that it can't just be about punitive measures, although I agree with my colleague that there doesn't seem to be follow-through on the detention aspect, although given the numbers, I hate the idea of our staff running around over 10 or 15 minutes late for 400 students every day. We're supposed to be about educating these kids, but obviously they have to be in class to be educated. But a couple of things that jumped out at me was, one house had 15% tardiness overall, while another house had 26% and consistently performed at the higher end every day. So I think that speaks again to looking at the culture at the house and what are some practices that one house is doing that maybe the other houses could model, so that we could try to get students invested in getting to school on time. First of all, getting to school, but secondly, getting to school on time. The other thing that really jumped out at me when they asked questions about what would make this situation easier, and the housemaster said stuff, well, they talked to students, why are you late? And many students said they're late because of the bus schedule. So right away I thought, well, I want to bring this issue up with the Transportation Subcommittee, because perhaps our Transportation Director, John Dakota, could talk to the LRTA, look at running some extra buses, prior to school starting, that apparently there's a one that's 30 or 40 minutes, gets kids 30 or 40 minutes early to school. Now, I don't know about you, but that would have never happened to me. So I think we need to look at some ways we can make it easier for kids to get to school on time. The other factor that jumped out at me, and I'm not sure what we can do about this, but definitely we'll be discussing it at the subcommittee meeting, was the cost for buses. Now, we have many students, I think it's over 65%, across the district, who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. Now, we're looking at, I think it's $20 a month for a bus pass to get to the high school. If there's some way we could have a program that if you're eligible for free and reduced lunch, you're eligible for a reduced bus pass. And I don't know how that would be funded, but I think it's something we need to look at. So I agree, there's a lot that needs to be done with this. It certainly isn't going away. We're not forgetting about it. I think it goes hand in hand with the attendance issues that we're looking at. But I think there's a couple of ways we can approach it, and one is to try to provide, like I said, help to get the kids there on time. Second one would be to really develop this culture, whether we pit the houses against each other or, in a game like, that was one of the things, the incentives. Now, I'm not into a laptop program for the whole high school. We can't afford it, frankly. But if there was some kind of really, a combination of the carrot and the stick, that there's some incentive. I know with my son's a middle school student in his class, just every day they have this competition. If everybody's in school on time, pitted with the other 7th grade classes, and I don't even know what they get, but it's just this idea of elevating coming to school on time as being something important, something that people value and pay attention to. And I'm sorry to go on about this. I agree with Mr. McHugh. It's important. It's part of the other issues that we're facing with just getting the kids at school. Thank you.
Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Just so when we do come together as a subcommittee to discuss this, the differences that are highlighted in the appendices, I guess I should say, but they're all numbered the same. Looking at the months of February and March and this comparison of low tardy days versus high tardy days, it's certainly striking that based on house, we see very different numbers, and I guess the good news of that would be that we do have some houses that seem to be certainly outperforming. And my question would be, what is happening differently in those specific houses? Is it a population issue, a demographic issue, or is it a difference in response time, a difference in kind of the support systems that we have in place? And if they are, if it is those types of differences, certainly how do we replicate them in the other houses that are functioning at the high school? So I guess the first question would need to be if these results for February and March are indeed indicative of performance on a larger scale, or if there's some anomaly within those months. But then in a secondary sense, I'd like us to be able to see what these differences are certainly marked as we look at these numbers, and there's got to be something that explains them. Off the top of my head, I certainly don't see anything jumping out at me, so I would charge the administration in working with the headmaster to determine why are we seeing such dramatic and seemingly consistent differences in overall tardy levels in the different houses within the high school. Thank you.
Mr. Leary.
Yeah, real quickly, Madam Superintendent, a lot has been said and a lot of good information to review here, so I just had a quick question. I noticed, and I did review it, I'm going to review it more thoroughly, but there wasn't a breakout. Last time we had a breakout between children who were absent because of the, I call it homeroom, the homeroom period versus the actual instruction time. Is there a quick breakout we could have for tomorrow's subcommittee meeting? It shouldn't be important if you're missing the homeroom period either. It's just as important. But I was just curious if there was still a laissez-faire focus on the students that, look, it's not instructional time, I'll get there when I get there. Just kind of an FYI if that can be done. If it can't be, I'm not overwhelmingly stressed about it.
Okay, motion to refer this matter to the high school subcommittee by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The matter so referred. The next report is concerning the Section 504 requirements, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, this is a part 2 of a report. Back in November, the committee had its first report on the status of the district's 504 policies and procedures. 504 takes its name from the section of federal law that guarantees individuals access to services regardless of their handicap. And so this report that you have follows up the November 10th report. There's an update on the process for ordering and installing specialized equipment. So you have a report on that, as well as steps taken to tie the 504 plans more closely to school, to academic classroom achievement. A third piece looking at the centralized database, and so on. And then I think that the committee would be interested in seeing the information by ethnicity, by gender, and by type of disability. of the current youngsters who have specific individual 504 plans. We have 268 youngsters. We can see that males are more likely than females to have 504 plans here in Lowell. And you can also see that, youngsters who are Asian or Hispanic are proportionally less likely to have 504 plans. And the disabilities range, the highest incidence have to do with youngsters with ADHD and youngsters with particular health challenges. You can see the number of the youngsters with allergies that require very specialized support and potential for intervention is high. If you looked at this 5 years ago, you would have seen a much lower number in the allergy area. That asthma is interesting because asthma is on the rise, and I would predict that over the next 5 years we'll see an increase in the number of youngsters whose asthma condition is serious enough that it requires a 504 accommodation plan. But you can also get a sense of the impact of these plans on the school nurses, because a lot of these disabilities involve follow-up medication. Much of which has to be provided during the school day, and this is an indication of the kind of role that our school nurses are playing, as well as, of course, many of our staff. So I welcome. I hope this is responsive to the questions that committee members had raised.
Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it. It was based on a motion I had last fall. And I think part of what it showed me was we really needed to get a handle on our 504 students, and that's why it took this long to pull it together. And I'm happy to see that a lot of the processes are put in place now. A couple of things about the breakdown. I was concerned when I saw that 70% of the students are white, because that makes me worry that perhaps we're not identifying many students out there who need 504 services, and their parents don't know or aren't aware of what the school could be doing to help with that. There's other areas I'd like to talk about and discuss further with this report, but I'd like to, if I could, forward this to the special ed subcommittee. I know we're going to be meeting as part of that joint meeting on Monday. Is it Monday? But so much is already on that agenda that if my other colleagues on the special ed subcommittee, I'd like to schedule another special ed subcommittee meeting to deal just with special ed 504 stuff. And I had another motion about special ed that I think goes back to January.
We don't have that data yet. We just finished the coordinated review, so I hope you can appreciate that we've been...
So we could maybe hold off and do this with that in a couple of weeks? So what time frame are you looking?
I think we have to... I don't know the answer to that yet.
Okay.
It's on our... we're getting to it as quickly as we can, but I can't give you an estimate right at this moment.
Well, I think unless anybody else would like to do this Monday night, I would rather put this off for the special ed subcommittee to be held at a further date when the superintendent has the other information ready. But I'd like to look at this more closely in the special ed subcommittee. Thank you.
Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to superintendent, or maybe even Ms. Franco. On the bottom of the last page, when it goes down the list, the last two, it says learning in general and specific learning. My understanding is 504s were more or less accommodations. So what would learning in general, what would you mean by that category? Is that something you could answer? Or?
Those would be specific handicaps or disabilities that would impact their general learning education, so they need specific accommodations in the 504 plan to access the curriculum. So it could be an overall, I don't specifically know one off the top of my head, but specific general learning is impaired because of whatever disability that has been identified, and so the accommodations are written so the children can access the general curriculum, and could be perhaps, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, reading. No, not really. It could be a disability that just impacts the learning, so I'm not really able to think of one right now, but
It's not
We'll look at
physical,
those,
though.
we'll look at those plans, and we'll be able to answer that question when we go to the subcommittee.
Okay. But you're not talking about somebody like who's in a wheelchair or something then, right?
well, it depends. It depends.
Well, I mean, they, like, you know, they can read and write, but they're just confined?
It could,
is that-
it could be. It depends on the individual student, so
Okay.
we'd have to
All
look
right,
up
we'll
some of
go
those,
over
John.
that at the meeting.
Yeah, I'll look up.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Motion to refer this matter to the Special Ed Subcommittee by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The matter is so referred. The next report is on the security system at Lowell High School. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, this is in response to a motion in the winter. Wanted to report that all of the security guard positions at the high school are currently filled. There are 8 security guards assigned to the Lowell High School itself. 1 is assigned to the Malloy Alternative School and 1 to the LeBlanc Therapeutic Day program. And all the positions are filled. There were questions about the status of the existing system of cameras in the high school, as well as plans for future improvements. And you have a report from Mr. Cassidy indicating that, as a matter of fact, this is the week, that an enhanced configuration to view and record images from the Freshman Academy is underway. They are being serviced. It's my understanding that it was a complicated bid process to get the servicing handled. In addition, there are plans in place for the summer upgrade. Our department is working with the Department of Public Works on this, and bids are due this Friday, May 5th, so that a contract will be awarded by mid-June so that the upgrade can take place this summer. The upgrade is made possible by a matching grant from the U.S. Department of Justice through the Lowell Police Department. So 45 new cameras will be installed in new locations throughout the facility, and a new digital recording system will be purchased, and existing wiring will be upgraded. So I think that as we move into this next school year, there'll be considerably enhanced capacity at the high school in terms of the security cameras. So this has been a complex process because of the funding, because of the need to collaborate with the Department of Public Works and the Police Department and our school department. So welcome any questions.
Mr. McHugh?
Thank you. Actually, it's not so much on the cameras, but I noticed on the cover memo, it said that a custodian was transferred. Was this a transfer he requested to become a security monitor? Is
Yes.
this something we manually? So I guess my question is, are we filling the custodian position? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is approved. Next matter is school crossing guards. Madam Superintendent.
In a recent motion adopted by the school committee, you requested a report on the number and location of crossing guards that are employed by the city and support the safe access of youngsters to the schools, and you have that report here. Welcome any questions.
Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I haven't spoken enough tonight, but some of these positions, there's one number 23, it says at the Stevens and Parker Street. If they're on this list, does it, I've been by there a few times and I've noticed that there wasn't anybody there. I could be hitting it on days when they're sick, but if it says we have one here, we should have one there, because I thought it was brought up at another meeting that other people thought we didn't have anybody at that position, at that location. So,
They were there
I
in the
mean-
fall because I was holding signs there for the election, and they were very helpful getting my sign
At
holders
Stevens
across the
and
street.
Parker?
Yes.
okay. Do we know if these principals had any say in this to make sure that, all their needs are met?
I don't know the answer to that
No?
question.
Okay. Can we ask Mr. Dakota to just find out that, I did want some of the principals to have some input on this, because they're there every day, and if they know that, I noticed, like, it says the Sullivan and the Riley, but the crossing guard on Douglas Road only stays for the Sullivan School, and he's not there for the Riley School. So I would say that the younger kids would need the crossing guard more than the elementary, but they both need it to cross that street. And I'm sure there's other situations here. So I don't think we need to have another subcommittee on this, but there's some things in here that need to be addressed. So, and if my colleagues had any other comments.
Ms. Doherty?
I was thinking maybe we could refer this to the Transportation Subcommittee, because I was thinking that, I noticed we have a crossing guard at the Bailey, which we don't have one right at the Daily, that corner of Campbell and Fleming where you've got 900 kids, or what is it, 766 kids now, getting out at 2:10, where the Bailey kids get out at 2:50 or 2:45, whatever the time is changing by 5 minutes. It would just seem very efficient to me if we could just get a crossing guard at the Daily a half hour earlier, and then they could go right to the Bailey. And I think that's similar to what you're talking about. So I'd like to refer it to the Transportation Subcommittee so we could look at, we're talking about expanding a person's job by half an hour and the safety of hundreds of kids. I think it's worth pursuing in subcommittee a little bit further. That would be my recommendation. I make that motion to send it to the Transportation Subcommittee for a review.
Motion to refer this matter to the Transportation Subcommittee by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is so referred. The next item is I believe the personnel report, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, you have this month's personnel report, and once again, you see a number of retirements. Next week is the annual Rotary-sponsored celebration of teaching held at the DoubleTree. I think more than 500 tickets have been sold. It's a standing room only crowd, and one of the things that we get to do at that event is to celebrate the work of our veteran teachers, particularly our retiring teachers. But this is an unprecedented number of teachers who are retiring. So you can see from the list teachers with 37, 34, 33, 28 years of service to the Lowell Public Schools.
A motion to accept the report by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. And the last item, I believe, on superintendent reports is the list of eligible teachers. The motion to approve the list by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The list is approved. Under new business, we had already taken the vote on interdistrict school choice. So the next item is the proposed modification in school bell times.
Yes, since the earlier meeting this year where the committee reviewed and accepted proposed changes in school start times that would result in reducing the number of buses required, Mr. Dakota has continued to fine-tune the plan, and there are 3 additional modest changes. One is to change the Shaughnessy time just by a little bit, so that to avoid what is likely to be congestion at the end of the day, because the dismissal time is so close to the butlers. He's been able to figure out a way to have the Wang start much closer to its current time rather than such a big change. So that should be less disruptive for families. And the Washington school, again, a very modest change. So making a recommendation that the committee approve these changes pending the outcome of appropriate negotiations, so that we can, again, refine the plan and be able to make this plan work better for families.
Motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call, please.
Ms. Fattacante, Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Larry,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, it's approved.
Could I just ask one question?
Mr. Leahy, yes.
Thank you. To the superintendent, was there any update on the, we had asked about programs for the Lincoln and the Moody for the morning? Any
I don't
progress
have,
on
I don't have
that, or-
information yet. I don't have information yet on that question.
Okay.
Okay, the next item is permission to post academic chair for special education at Lowell High School in place of the special education educational team chair position at Lowell High School. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, as I explained in the, when I talked about the budget earlier, in the trade-off budget, we're looking as part of a reorganization in special education to convert one of the ETC positions at the high school to the academic chair for special education. We had hoped to have had a meeting of Lowell High School Subcommittee before tonight to review it in detail. But in order to be able to move quickly to recruit and potentially fill this position, I'm requesting permission to post the position now as an anticipated vacancy, pending review of the final job description by the Lowell High School Subcommittee and discussion, of course, by the Special Ed Subcommittee next week, so that final action could be taken by the 17th. This just would allow us to accelerate the timetable for posting, and ultimately, if it is the committee's decision to permit this position to be filled, then we'd be able to fill it before the school year is out, which seems really important in terms of the planning for next year. And otherwise, we're going to lose at least 2 weeks of time in the discussion.
Ms. Doherty?
Question, if we post it, are we locked into then having the position?
No, we would post it as an anticipated vacancy.
Okay.
And
I
so
have no
that
problem
we
with
would
that.
not be locked into it, but I'd have permission to post it as an anticipated vacancy. Then ultimately, the committee could decide not to authorize it, then we wouldn't fill it. But we'd be able to start the process of recruiting.
Mr. Leary?
2 quick questions, Madam Superintendent. One, what is the difference between the two? Team chair versus special, I guess, briefly, I'm new here, so I gotta like...
The academic chair has responsibilities. An academic chair position can supervise and evaluate staff.
Okay.
An educational team chairperson cannot. So one key difference is in supervision and evaluation of staff. So we don't have, so that the person now responsible for supervision and evaluation of all the special education staff at the school is the coordinator of student services and some department heads in content areas. So we don't have a person on staff specializing in special education, supervising and evaluating staff. So that's one difference among several. But if you're asking the primary.
Okay, motion to approve the request by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Leary. Do we need a roll call?
No one, not.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The matter is approved.
If there's a position.
The next item is under professional personnel, request from the United Teachers of Lowell to donate sick leave days to the following teachers: Sarah Flynn Donovan, Bartlett Community Partnership, 32 days; Sandra Jordan at Lowell High School, 20 days; Edwin Rivera at the Robinson Middle School, 55 days. Motion to approve by Mr. Leahy, seconded by Mr. McHugh. Roll call, please.
Ms. Fattacante, Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr.
Can I just
Leary.
ask one quick question before? When I had asked earlier, do you think we could do our speeches at the next meeting? Well, can we do our introduction of the budget at the next meeting when we get our budget, or, because if we don't decide tonight, we won't do it, right? Do we need to vote on that, or do we
I
just?
don't think so. I thought, if anything, I think what I would want to see is if anyone has like any information they would want to receive, that would be the time to ask for it. more than anything else. Like if there's other information you might want the administration to provide, so when we get to our first budget meeting, you have all the information, because it tends to come up at that point, and then it delays the process. So you don't understand what I'm saying?
You're saying you want to look at the budget before you?
No, I think if there's going to be any questions or any other additional information you may want, that might be the adequate time to bring it up so the administration can prepare it for our first full budget meeting. You have, enrollments or anything else you would want to say for information.
All right, thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The meeting stands adjourned.
9:12 p.m.